everyone. Welcome to Wednesday Stash, where we share ways to help you keep your food for longer. So, today we're going to talk about low pasteurization, lower temperature pasteurization of pickles. If you have been making pickles um, this summer, started in the spring, but this summer, like I have, you may have more in hand than you can eat, or you want to store some, get them out of the refrigerator. This is a way that you can do it, and um, I'll give you the reasons why. So, now if your pickles are ready, they've been fermenting in your container, and they're ready to go. They're ready to either go in the refrigerator. Um, you can store fully fermented pickles in the refrigerator in the original container that it was fermented in for 4 to 6 months. But if you want to keep them longer, that's where people they want to can them. They want to keep them longer than 4 to 6 months. So I'm going to show you that now. Um, I'll show you two methods that you can do it. The traditional method, we'll go through it, but I'll show you. You have your fully fermented pickles. So I'm going to tilt down so that you can see what I'm working with. These were I cut mine into spears because that's how I want them, to be in the jar. And if you see, they came out really well. They're still crunchy. They're not mushy. Excellent texture, and they're ready to go. I want to save these. So what will you do? You're going to have your canning jar. Fill your canning jar with your pickles. Thought I sliced that one well. It's still hanging on there. But we're going to fill up the jar, leaving 1/2 inch of head space. So let's get this jar filled up. All right, and I could actually get some more cucumbers in here, but that's all I cut up for this demonstration. You will notice my fermentation jar is empty. The only thing, oh, you know what? I'm gonna let that pepper go ahead and stay in there with it. But that's all that's left in this jar. No more. Okay, so you're gonna fill up your jar with your cucumbers and the brine that was in the fermentation jar. You're going to bring that to a boil for 5 minutes. You can strain this. I didn't have a lot. Sometimes it's really cloudy. I don't mind the cloudiness that's here, but if you do not want your brine to be cloudy, go ahead and run this, strain it through a coffee filter, and that will take out more of the solids, from the brine. If you have any, it'll reduce cloudiness. But I'm happy with my brine, so I'm not going to filter. And then you're going to pour the hot brine. You have 1/2 inch headspace. You're going to fill your jar to that 1/2 inch headspace line. Okay? If you have a measuring wand, if you're not familiar with your 1/2 inch and you need your measuring wand, go ahead and use that. After you've been doing it for a while, you'll begin to recognize 1/2 inch headspace. But you want to remove any air bubbles. Okay, so I'm using my favorite thing to remove air bubbles is a chopstick. But if you can use a plastic wand, plastic spoon, a plastic knife. What you don't want to use, do not use any metal. Metal can chip can cause scratches. It can chip your jar, and that leads to weakness. Okay, so I'm going to add, when I ran the wand, it dropped a little bit because There was air trapped in there, so I'm going to add a little bit to my 1/2 inch headspace. Okay. Run my wand again, and it still looks good. And actually I poured a little bit too much in there, so get rid of a little. There we go. All right, so now we have your jars filled appropriately. You're going to wipe off your rim so that you make sure that you have good contact with your lid, because you know that compound needs to have, there shouldn't be any food between the rim of the glass and the compound. And then you're going to go ahead and finger tighten, and then this is ready to go into the canner. You can, for fermented pickles, traditionally, the quick method of doing it, of pasteurizing your jar to protect against spoilage, you're going to process this for 10 minutes. For these pint size, 10 minutes, but if you were doing quart size, it would be 15 minutes. And your jars would be shelf stable and ready to go. Okay? Now, if you have more patience and you want your pickle to stay good texture and crunchy, because you know it's not a long time, but your pickles might soften a little bit using the traditional pasteurization method for it. So if you want to keep them nice and crunchy, you don't want them to soften too much, and you have more patience, I'm going to show you a lower temperature pasteurization method. Okay, so what you're going to do is everything stays the same. Okay, you're going to go ahead and fill your jars, boil your brine for 5 minutes, strain it if you'd like, pack your jars, and when you go to put it in the canner, instead of putting it into boiling water, putting it into hot canner, I'll see if, make sure you can see. I have a canner here, and I've got jars inside already. But the temperature that you're going to start off, you're going to have the water at, is going to be between 120 and 140 degrees. So with this one, I'm 138 degrees, which is great. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this jar in the canner, and your canner is half full of that warm water. You're going to finish filling it with hot water. So let's move that out of the way. So I have a tea kettle of hot water here, and you're going to fill until you are 1 inch over the top of the jars. Okay? All right, and I'm at 1 inch over the top. I need a little bit more water. Give me 1 second. I have another kettle. All right, so I'm going to finish filling this with hot water until it's 100, until it's, I'm sorry, 1 inch over the jar. And stir this water a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to measure the temperature. And the temperature is right now, it's 166 degrees. And I'm going to raise this up, and I'm going to bring the temperature up to 180 degrees. And what you want to do is you want to keep the temperature between 180 and 185 degrees for 30 minutes. The first processing time I showed you, the traditional way of doing it, using a boiling water bath, the water's going to be boiling 212 degrees. That's going to be 10 minutes for pints. It's going to be 15 minutes for quarts. For this process, it's going to be 30 minutes that you hold it. So you want to make sure that you're keeping it between 180 and 185. If it's above 185 degrees, then you're going to have softening. It's going to unnecessarily soften your pickles. But if it's below 180 degrees, then they're not properly pasteurized and you're at risk of spoilage because you didn't pasteurize it for the correct amount of time. So lower temperature, longer time. All right, but crunchier pickle. You keep the texture of your pickle for longer. Now this process, I'm going to check my temperature again. See what we're up to. Okay, we're rising, but we're not at 180 degrees. If you'll notice with my thermometer, it has a little clip on the end so that I can hang it on the side of the pot. Ideally, a candy thermometer works really well. It's longer, has a clip, it's deeper, and you can test your temperature. Could not find candy thermometer, so I'm using this one that has a clip that can that's immersed in the water, so I can measure the temperature of my pot. All right, so once that gets up to 180 degrees, like I said, you want to hold it at that temperature for 30 minutes. And then once that time is up, it's the same process. You remove your jars, put them on a cushioned surface, and you leave them to seal. You 12 to 24 hours for them to seal. Okay? And that's low temperature pasteurization for pickles. So if you've been making pickles this summer, you want to can some, that's a method that you can can. Thank you for joining me this week for Wednesday Stash. Now next week I'm going to talk about syrups, making syrups for freezing or for canning, and why you might want to use a syrup, what's the purpose. So come back next week for Wednesday Stash, and we'll go over syrups. And I will say hi to, I see Cheryl is on. Hi Cheryl. And unless anybody has any questions, I'm going to sign off right now, and take care. Have a wonderful Wednesday.